Have you ever decided, hey, I'm gonna start a song? Spend a few hours on something you like, come back to that project after taking a short break, and then just not like what you have? It's demotivating, right? Now you don't want to finish it. We've all been there. So maybe to help, in this video, I'm gonna give you 10 tips/steps on how to finish your songs. Let's get into it. Hello there, my inspirations. My name is InspirAspir. Finishing songs can be hard. Like I said, it can be demotivating to spend hours on end to end up with a drum loop and a melody that you don't like anymore. Like that just sucks, right? Personally, I have dozens of Ableton projects that just contain chord progressions or a simple melody that never really evolved into anything more than that. And I have poured hours into that, and I know how it feels to start something and then just end up not really liking the result. So that being said, let's get into the topic of this video, where hopefully I will teach you how to finish your songs. The first tip I have for you is to start simple and envision your end goal. Admittedly, sometimes it can be nice to blindly jump into a song and just make music for the sake of making music. But I wouldn't be mentioning this if I didn't think it weren't worth bringing up. So picture what you want to make. Often, if you envision a general end product, or maybe a final completed project, it can help to keep you motivated. This can be the case for anything, really, and I think it applies perfectly for making music. Don't start a new blank project with the goal of, oh, I'm gonna sit down and finish this in 2 hours. You're gonna get let down. Not saying that you can't, but make little goals for yourself. Say, oh, today I'm just gonna make the drop, or something like that. Or, oh, you know what? I'm gonna focus on making the intro really good. Tip number 2 is to do some upfront work. Again, I know this is about finishing your song, but it's hard to finish your song if you don't have a good foundation. There are a few things you would want to do before trying to finish your song. One of the first things is choose a BPM. Do you want your song to be fast, slow, bouncy, and energetic, calm, and relaxing? So just keep that in mind, consider something that you may want. You can always change it later. Pick a key. Different keys can typically convey different feelings depending on what chord progression or melody you use in that key. While knowing a lot of music theory can definitely help, you don't have to know anything. And yet there are some shortcuts and little tips and tricks to navigate around this. In fact, I've released a few videos myself about this. Point is, the whole music theory aspect can come over time, and yeah, I do fully admit it will help tremendously if you know a lot of music theory. But all I'm trying to say is you don't have to limit yourself, and for those of you who may not know some music theory, that's okay, it doesn't necessarily stop you from making music. Finally, for this tip, pick a general feeling for your song. Usually you are making music because you want to, not necessarily because you have to. So since you want to make a song, just pick a feeling that you want to emulate. How do you want to feel when you listen to your song? How do you want your listeners to feel when they listen to your song? This is something that's nice just to keep in the back of your head and just kind of think of as you're making your song. Again, as I mentioned before, these can always change. However, they are pretty important to creating a nice foundation. It's hard to reach the end when you don't know where you're going. Tip number 3 I have for you, or more so a step in the process, is actually starting your song. I've made a video before covering how to start your first song, and what I'm about to teach you is more or less just a rundown of that video, so I'll be a little quick. But basically, personally, when it comes to starting your song, you can do whatever you want. Honestly, you can make whatever layer you want first. But personally, I like to start with a chord progression, and I maintain that the more work you put into this up front is better in the long run. Since I like to view chord progressions as the foundation of a song, everything else I sort of build off of the chords. Now, maybe you don't necessarily want to start with chords, that's fine. Start with a melody, for example, or maybe you happen to have a singer you brought in who has given you some vocals. You can work with that first. From there, you can build upon that. Add a bunch of elements until you've created something you're satisfied with. This doesn't even have to be in your final song. It can just be something you make to generate ideas. At the end of the day, if you spend a few hours making a little loop that just ultimately motivates you to create a song that you then finish, that's perfectly fine. Even if you don't use that loop, that's okay. I hope that made sense. I don't. Step number 4, envision the structure of your song. Once you've gotten off the ground and you've started to create something that you like, you then may need to think of other segments of your song. This can be one of the more difficult steps in the process, or at least for me it is. This is the whole, yeah sure, I can start a marathon thing. Yeah great, I started a song, I made a loop. Neat. From here though, can you expand it into anything that you like? I bet you can, but it's more so, can you envision something that you like and actually build upon it? It may be kind of dumb to say, but picture the typical structure of any song that you listen to. Typically there's some form of an intro, and then maybe there's some segment beyond that, adds variety. And then for EDM, typically you have your build up. You then have your drop, that's meant to be the climax or the chorus of your song. Maybe you have a bridge or some sort of breakdown, going into another build up, maybe drop, and then from here it kind of varies. Maybe you want to have a third drop, maybe you want to have a long outro. Obviously it's up to you to determine the structure of your song. And while I'm fully on board with and sometimes do enjoy unstructured songs that made me go, oh, that's pretty unique, you do have to admit that sometimes a nice structure can be nice. But just take a second to step back and think, where is this going? Tip number 5 is to work on your transitions to make it all flow a little better. 1, reversed Reversed cymbals are your best friend when it comes to transitions. Let's say for example here, this reverse cymbal. All this is a cymbal sample. This is what it sounds like. So let's hear what that sounds like in the song itself and try and listen for that reverse cymbal. I think that lets the listener know that, hey, this song is transitioning to a different element, and as soon as it hits to the next element, it cuts out. There are other elements too, like sound effects, for example. In addition, I have some auto filter automation going on. So that's another way of implementing a transition, is to kind of quiet out the layers of your song as it goes into the next segment. There's also another transition in this song that I kind of like, and I'll explain how I made it. What I did here was I had this sound effect, added a lot of reverb to it, froze it, flattened it, and then just reversed that sample, and then put it right before that sound effect. So it gives the effect of a transition. This right here. And then in addition, I also have a reverse cymbal like I explained earlier. Now without either of those elements, and then with them again, so I think that's one takeaway you could probably learn, is to add some transitions into your song. Reversed cymbals going up into the transition and then crashing cymbals right as the transition happens. Also noise risers, like maybe some white noise. Add that in, but slowly over time. Also experiment around with and reverse samples and stuff. That can be nice. Tip number 6 is to think of a general flow for your song. So you've envisioned a structure for your song, you maybe have created a bunch of different segments now that can transition between each other, which is nice. But now you need to think of fine-tuning your structure. So is your intro too long? Is it too short? Does your build-up prepare all the excitement that you want? If not, add some elements to it, maybe some sound effects. Maybe some percussion that you didn't think you needed before. Do you think your drop's exciting enough? At this point, we're just going back through and fine-tuning everything. This is the point where you can tweak your EQing maybe to be just perfect, so you can expose every element of your song that you want. Generally, this is the part where you just polish your song. Step 7, consider adding some variety. One of the biggest ways to gain my respect as a music listener is to hear a song with variety. By that, I mean perhaps 2 different drops in a song that have different stylistic elements, or maybe they're structured differently. Maybe the intro and bridge are paralleled but different enough to keep things interesting. Repetition is one of the quickest ways for songs to get boring. That's not to say you shouldn't aim to make something catchy, since some people seem to think that they're the same thing. Here's an example off the top of my head. The Fat Rat. He uses the same melody 80% of the time in any of his songs. But that being said, he's great at adding variants in different layers of the song to keep everything fresh. So while, sure, I could easily whistle a tune of any one of his songs, I don't personally find them repetitive. On the flip side, just as an example off the top of my head, Steve Aoki, Boneless. While extremely catchy, it also contains the same copy-pasted loop of the song 20 times, with very low variance. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I am just suggesting to you as a music producer that you have the option to go for whatever style you'd like. You can definitely balance repetitiveness with catchiness, just saying. Tip 8 is to Experiment to go outside of your comfort zone. Try and make feature bass, I don't know, and fail miserably your first time. That's perfectly okay. While I'm entirely convinced that Bob Ross came out of the womb capable of painting masterpieces, I'm sure he had to take time to practice painting happy tree friends and throughout the way stumbled across a few happy little accidents, or whatever. Don't try to conform to a single genre and limit yourself to saying, oh, well, this is dubstep, nothing more. You are creating your own song, and it can be whatever you like, as long as you are happy with it. Ultimately, challenging yourself to experiment and make different sounds will surprisingly help you out the next time you try and make a song. Until eventually, after years of practice and doing things this way, you'll look back where you are now and be extremely proud of where you came from. Tip 9, congrats, your song's finished. Just like that. I mean, no, obviously, at this point, you would need to spend hours on your song until you finish it. But hey, if you've made it this far and you've created something that you're proud of, congrats. As long as you've made some combinations of different sounds over a length of time, you've made your first song, woo! You may be excited, and you should be, but your work isn't finished. Yeah, I know. At this point, when you've finished making your song, you now have come to the process of mastering. This isn't something I can cover extensively in this video since mastering is its own process entirely, but I can give a few suggestions on where to look. Previously, I've made tutorials on how to master songs in Ableton with no plugins, which is perfect for beginners, those of you who I imagine are probably watching this video anyways. There are also online mastering programs which I would recommend for beginners as well, but this isn't a free option. And for those advanced music producers out there, there are external plugins that you can use to master your songs that are way better and more advanced, but I don't think that you'd be watching this video and not be aware of those tools. So, yeah. Step 10, release. Your song's done. Releasing a song is also a process in of itself, but still, obviously, a crucial step in finishing your song. This pretty much just entails creating your artwork and uploading your song to the proper streaming sites. Most of it's straightforward. I think you'll figure it out on your own, but hey, I bring this up because if you've made it this far, great job! That's really awesome, and you're now officially a music producer if you've released your first song. Actually, let me know in the comments below if you made it to this step after watching this video, or, well, preferably because of this video. I hope I helped you out, and it would be cool on my end to know that I did. So yeah, if you do that for me, that'd be great. I would love it. That's it. That's all I got for you. Good luck to all of you out there. Thanks for watching. I appreciate your time. Have a good day.